Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Comey, for being here today, and thanks for hanging in there till every last question is answered. I'm not a lawyer. That's the good news. I'm a career businessman. I've spent most of my career operating in the high-tech industry. And today I've heard words such as common sense, reasonable person, carelessness, judgment, or lack thereof. I like these words. I understand these words. I think the average American does as well. So I'd like to focus on that. Last Tuesday, Director Comey, you said, and I quote, "None of these emails should have been on any kind of an unclassified system, but their presence is especially concerning because all these emails were housed on unclassified personal servers, not even supported by full-time security staff, like those found at agencies of the United States government, or even with a commercial email service such as Gmail." Director Comey, my small Iowa business doesn't even use Gmail for our email because it's not secure enough. I know some security experts in the industry. I check with them. The going rate to hack into somebody's Gmail account, $129. For corporate emails, they can be hacked for $500 or less. If you want to hack into an IP address, it's around $100. Now, I'm sure the FBI can probably do it cheaper. This is the going rate. Director Comey, are you implying in that statement that the private email servers of Secretary Clinton's were perhaps less secure than a Gmail account that is used for free by 1 billion people around this planet?
Yes, and I'm not looking to pick on Gmail. Their security is actually pretty good. The weakness is in the individual users. But yes, Gmail has full-time security staff and thinks about patching and logging and protecting their systems in a way that was not the case here.
I'd like to ask you, what kind of judgment, we're talking a lot about judgment today, does this decision to potentially expose to hackers classified information on email service that's less secure than Gmail, your words, what does that suggest to you? What type of judgment does that suggest to you?
It suggests the kind of carelessness that I talked about.
In August of last year, Secretary Clinton was asked by Ed Henry of Fox News whether she had wiped her entire server, meaning did she delete all the emails on her server. Her response, "You mean with a cloth?" March of 2015, during a press conference, Secretary Clinton assured us her private email server was secure, saying the server was on private property guarded by the Secret Service. Now, this would be laughable if it wasn't so serious. I know, you know, my constituents in eastern Iowa know you don't need to be a cat burglar to hack into an email server, and you don't need a cloth to wipe a server clean. One would think that a former United States Senator, one would think that a former Secretary of State would know this as well. Would you agree with that statement?
You would think, although as I said before, one of the things I've learned in this case is that the Secretary may not have been as sophisticated as people assume. She didn't have a computer in her office at the State Department, for example. So I don't think, so I would assume the same thing about someone who'd been a senator and a high-ranking official. I'm not sure it's a fair assumption in this case.
In your opinion, Director Comey, did Secretary Clinton know that a server could, in fact, be wiped clean electronically and not with a cloth?
Well, I assume that I don't.
Would you assume she knows that?
I would assume that it was a facetious comment about a cloth, but I don't know. I don't know in particular on that one.
Would you also assume, Director, that Secretary Clinton knew that a server could be wiped clean electronically, that it could be hacked electronically, not physically? You don't need a cat burglar to hack a server. Would you assume, would that be reasonable to assume she knows that?
To some level, it would be reasonable, to some level of understanding.
Then once again, for someone who knew these things, or we assume to some level she knew these things, what kind of judgment does a decision to expose classified material on personal servers suggest to you? What type of judgment?
Well, again, it's not my place to assess judgment. I talk in terms of state of mind, negligence in particular. I think there was carelessness here, and in some circumstances, extreme carelessness.
Was her server hacked?
I don't know. I can't prove that it was hacked.
So that answer says to me it could have been hacked.
Sure, yeah.
And if it was hacked, potentially damaging material, damaging to American secrets, damaging to American lives, could have been hacked, could have been exposed, correct? Lives could have been put at risk if that server was indeed hacked?
I'm not prepared to say yes as to that last piece. That would require me going into, in a way I can't hear the nature of the classified information, but there's no doubt that it would have potentially exposed information that was classified. Information is classified because it could damage the United States of America.
So it could have happened. The FBI just isn't aware.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I yield back the time I do not have.
Thank the gentleman. Now recognize the